This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Rabbi Glatstein, Parsha Shemini, we have a sheet prepared, but I just want to share something with you very briefly, something really absolutely astounding. I have a sheet that unfortunately I need back. Okay? So we're going to give this out, but please collect it right after. I'm going to need these back. Something very interesting. You know, in Parsha Shemini it talks about the kosher animals. And the simanim of kosher animals, we're all familiar. They have to chew their cud. They have to have split hooves.
Split that far.
And we're quite aware that in order to eat an animal, the animal has to be shechted kahalacha. And in recent history, there have been many accusations and a lot of criticism about the practice of shechita in general. And in fact, in many European countries, they've tried to abolish shechita, claiming that it's barbaric and cruel and insensitive to animals. And we hear so much criticism. There are many, unfortunately, from Jews who start to believe these accusations that, yeah, shechita, you know, it's insensitive, it's cruel, but you know, that's what Hashem said. And the truth is, if we have a little bit of an understanding of what shechita is, we will see, and we'll expose the fallacy of any claims against shechita, and we'll see actually shechita is the most painless way to kill an animal. And the most humane way. Very interesting. First of all, we're all familiar that the knife has to be absolutely sharp, right? If you look in Yeridea, the knife has to be checked in 12 ways. Which means every knife has 3 parts. It has the edge of the blade and the 2 sides. All 3 parts of the knife have to receive a 4-part check. Which means you take the skin of the finger, you bring it both directions, over all 3 parts of the knife, over both sides and the top. Then you take the nail, and you pass it back and forth over all 3 parts of the knife. Okay, so if there's even the slightest nick, it would be detectable by the finger, and the slightest nick would render the knife possible. You shecht with a knife like that. So the knife is so sharp that the cut is not felt, and surgeons will testify that during emergency surgery, they're using very sharp instruments. They could accidentally cut themselves. They will not know until they see the blood on their hands. It's such a sharp cut. Then the shechita has to be in one motion. Right? Okay. It is severing the carotid artery, which means the blood pressure immediately drops and renders the animal unconscious in less than 2 seconds. Okay? So it is not enough time for the animal's nervous system to even react to the cut. Okay. Just these arguments alone would be enough to silence any criticism against any accusations. But you'll see something that's absolutely astounding. And that is, if you look at your picture...
But this method was tested in Poland in 1938.
Yeah.
They wanted to forbid the shechita.
Yeah.
In Poland, not the Nazis.
Okay.
So they took an old shochet, 92 years old. And he shechted the behemoth, and they shechted the behemoth from their way to dump it first with electric and then kill it. So the behemoth they shecht by the shochet suffered 2 minutes less than by the...
Yeah. Listen to this. Now, this is astounding. Here's the thing. Let's take a look at the pig for a moment. Right? If your wife asked, what did you learn today? You said, we studied the pig. So, take a look at the pig.
Which you will ask me.
When you shecht the animal, you're only allowed to sever the carotid artery. You're not allowed to sever the vertebral artery. Okay? The reason you're not allowed to sever the vertebral artery is because you may cut the vertebrae itself, which is a big problem. Because if you cut the vertebrae, you may be covering over a treifa, actually. So, okay, you're not allowed to sever the vertebra. You may be puncturing the kana or the veshet by severing the vertebra. Okay. So here's the problem. You're severing the carotid artery. That's very nice. It will stop the blood flow of the carotid artery to the brain. But the blood is still flowing from the vertebral artery to the brain. And that means the animal will still be alive with this terrible wound through its neck. In kosher animals, a miraculous phenomenon occurs. What is that? And that is, in any animal that chews its cud and has split hooves, The vertebral artery, before going to the brain, makes a 90-degree turn south. And before it hits the brain, it connects to the carotid artery, so that at the end of the day, the only, or not, I shouldn't say the only, but the main source of blood, the major, so the overwhelming majority of the blood will only come to the brain from the carotid artery. So that as soon as the carotid artery is severed in kosher animals only, the animal instantly becomes unconscious. Try shechting what?
Above the joint of the vertebral to the carotid artery?
No, not of it. It has to be, on the bottom part of the neck. In other words, you're not allowed to sever the vertebral artery, and it's now the truth is you're severing the carotid artery even before the vertebral artery connects with the carotid artery. But as soon as you sever the carotid artery, the vertebral artery, instead of going into the carotid artery into the brain, it backflows out of the cut because that is the place of least resistance. That's the place of least resistance. No, otherwise it would flow directly to the brain. It's because it's a place of least resistance. So incredible. If you do shechita to a horse or a pig, it can cause the animal to suffer. Why? Because the animal still has an independent blood flow from the vertebral artery and it will still be alive. But if you do shechita to any kosher animal by severing the carotid artery, that becomes the only source of blood to the brain, because somehow, miraculously, the vertebral artery makes a 90-degree, and if you look in some of these diagrams, it's more than a 90-degree. It's like a 120-degree turn south. So as soon as the carotid artery is severed, the behemoth is instantly dead.
I don't know about this. Obviously they must.
I don't know. Okay. I need my sheets back.
What about this?
If anybody wants it, they could. I'll give it to you. But ask me after.
What about this?
What? Yeah, it's on top. But what happens is it goes down. So even though you're shechting here,
Yeah, but you don't see it going down.
yeah, you do. It's purple. This is purple. See? Okay.
I have a question. If someone really, in a case, whatever, there's no food. They only have pig. All they have to eat, and they have a knife. My question is, should they do shechita on the pig, or should they kill it a different way? Life and death. The only food there is the pig.
Maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know.
Wouldn't know what to do. In light of what you were saying about the shechita,
Maybe it's the most humane. By the way, it's also I don't know. It's also, by the way, very interesting that the studies have been done that if you take, people say, well, the cows get frightened when they see their friends being shechted. First of all, the halacha is you don't shecht one behemoth in the presence of another behemoth. But besides that, they did a study. Even that people say, the animals are scared when you're bringing them to slaughter. They can't stand the smell of blood. They did a study. They took blood on a knife. They brought it to a cow. The cow licked it. Okay, that's how scared the cow was of the blood. It licked the blood. But by treif animals, by horses and dogs, you take it to the slaughterhouse. They sense what's going on. The sheep and the cows, in most instances, they have absolutely no idea what's going on. Okay, right? Fine. Let's move on. Parsha Shemini. Parsha Shemini. We have a number of very unique.
One thing I'm going to tell you. When you go to your shlach house, and you see a big pardon me, and he holds the animal. Mama's in the wrestling pole, okay? And that's the way the shaykhim checked it. You can't tell me that the animal is not scared.
Yeah, that's because you have to do the precise location. If the animal moves,
right? The Shratz had a pair of muscles from here.
you can work to us about a case.
Okay, let's.
Rebbe's the animals are Rebbe, and he didn't have Rahmanas.
He didn't have Rahmanas.
For 13 years. So we see there the animal was scared. In that case.
Which animal was
Well, you were with Rebbe. It was Rebbe when he didn't have Rahmanas. He was punished.
The sheep ran and hit.
Yeah, the sheep.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that.
That was a scaredy cat.
Okay. Parsha Shemini. Vayikchu b'nei Aaron Nadav Avihu ish machtasai. The b'nei Aaron took Nadav and Avihu. They took each one their pan. Vayidnu b'hayneish. They placed a fire in it. Vayasimu lak tayras. And they put a incense. Vayakrivu l'fnei Hashem eish zara And they offered before God a foreign fire, asher lo tziva oisam, a fire that God had not commanded them. Simply put, God never told them to offer this fire. What do the words mean, asher lo tziva oisam? Simply, the way I translated it, is God never told them to offer this fire. However, the Cheskuni says, it does not mean God never told them to do it. God told them not to do it. Says the Cheskuni number 3, Asher loy tziva oisam, Perush, Asher loy lasoy tziva oisam. He commanded them not to do it. K'dechsiv, loy salu of k'tares zara. There was a commandment, you're not to bring a foreign incense. In fact, the Baal HaTurim also points out, Asher loy tziva, ein loymar. Don't say it means loy tziva lahavi eish zara. He didn't command them to bring a foreign fire. But he also didn't command them not to bring it. No, Ela Perusha, you know what it means? Asher tzivoy shaloi tzivaisam. A commandment of no, he commanded them.
There's a mercha kfula under the law.
In other words, it doesn't mean that he did not command them. It means he commanded them not to.
When did he command them?
There's a pasuk that says, Loi salu alav k'tares zara. You're not to offer a foreign incense.
There was a general. God didn't command them personally.
Yeah, he did.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
It's a general command, not to.
Every Jew is commanded not to.
But it wasn't.
Right, that's
Not now at this point.
what I was thinking.
If we accept that,
One sec, yeah.
if we accept that medrash, we know
One second.
they were coming to Chachamim.
So one second.
Hashem told them specifically.
Again, so that's the way the Baal HaTurim is learning the pasuk, that Hashem commanded them not to do it. Yeah? How does the Baal HaTurim know that? That's not what the words mean. Asher lo tzivosam. He didn't command them.
Patron always says things that he says of his own things that he from his learning he.
I want to know, how did he know? Well,
Does that?
okay.
They get it from
So-
they pull it from the hat. They all do that.
where did he get? No, they didn't pull it out from the hat.
No, they all do that.
No, nobody did. Where did he get this from? So I would like to suggest.
You can read the pasuk to say that lo doesn't mean a Kodesh Baruch Hu.
No, Asher lo tziva osam. He did not
I
command
think
them.
the truck is very unusual. Lo.
Maybe Moshe
The mercha
Aaron told
kfula.
them,
The
didn't
mercha
tell them
kfula.
not to do it.
So I would suggest, yeah.
The mercha kfula.
Kodesh Baruch Hu may have said to them, "You're going to do it." He didn't tell them yet it was time to do it, and they jumped the gun because it's reason makim is lo mitzvahs.
No, again, where do you see in this pasuk Hashem the words Asher lo tziva osam mean he did not command them? So I believe the Baal HaTurim sees it in the truck.
The truck, yeah.
How? If you read now, normally it would say Asher Loi Tziva Oisam. Now, Loi is a mercha. Mercha is a mashares. Loi is connected to the word Tziva. Loi Tziva Oisam. He did not command it. But now that there's a mercha kfula, then you read it like this: Asher Loi Tziva Oisam. A mercha kfula is somewhat of a melech. It's a stopping. It's a pause. Asher that Loi no. Tama, Siva Oisam, he commanded them. In other words, what they were commanded was, they were commanded Loi. Asher Loi, that not, Siva Oisam, that's what he was commanded. In other words, you put the comma after the word Loi. If a person would not read the Loi with the Mercha Kfula, according to the Mishnah Berurah, they need to go back. Because if you render a Meshares into a Melech, Machzira Noisei. That's the halacha of Mishnah Berurah. Okay. Let us move on.
I would think Asher would be a severe. I don't know about Corey. Asher lo tziva osam.
Okay, severe is also not. Severe is connected to the previous.
Without that mercha kfula.
No, then it would not mean that. Then it would not mean that.
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't.
Okay, let us continue.
Lo has a double note. Is that a double note?
That's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do. Let's move on. Rabbi Say, let's move. Number 4. So here's the problem. The problem is that we know in Chazal, Chazal tell us there are a number of various opinions as to what the Avera of the Bnei Aaron were. We have many different opinions. Okay? Look in Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky writes in Emes Yaakov, Hinei b'misas Bnei Aaron, Rabu Hadeos. There are many opinions. Mar Amar, one opinion is, Libnei Shahiru Halacha B'fnei Rabban. Because they paskined a halacha in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. which is an avera. You're not to invoke a halacha in front of the Rebbe. Some say they had drunk wine and they went into the Mishkan Shisuya Yayin. Another opinion is they already chayiv misa from the time of Matan Torah, right? Shikfar neschayvu b'Sinai. At Har Sinai, they bayachsu, so like him, they gazed at God inappropriately. God delayed punishing them not to mar the simcha of Matan Torah. Another opinion is they were chayiv misa because they didn't want to get married. No. They said Achei Avinu Malach, right? Our uncle is the king. Achei Imenu Nasi. Our other uncle is the Nasi, right? Our father is the Kohen Gadol. You find me a shidduch that it's worthy of me, right? That's what the Bnei Aaron said. Mihu Haroilanu Lufikach Leikimu Puruvu. Another opinion is another opinion is they entered the Mishkan without washing the hands and feet. And another opinion is they did not take advice from each other. And another opinion is
what is that? What is going on here? None of the Navigu. These people are all saying that these are tzaddikim gemurim, and they possibly guilty of all these.
Let's see another opinion. They were anticipating the death of Moshe and Aaron. They were saying they didn't take advice from each other.
What do you mean? They did. They both agreed to the same.
In general. And another opinion is they did not. Right? We know that Nadav and Avihu, in a way, were even greater than Moshe and Aaron. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was told, "B'kroivai HaKadosh," that God would be sanctified with His holy ones. So Moshe thought and Aaron thought it would be them. But no, it was Nadav and Avihu. They were in a way greater than Moshe and Aaron. So Nadav and Avihu, Rabbis, there are a lot of questions here. If we want to get through the material, we'll have to hold them off. Okay? And another opinion is that they were anticipating the death of Moshe and Aaron. When are we going to lead the generation? Okay? So we have a lot of chatoim that Chazal detected them, right? Number one, they passed in front of the Rebbe. Number two, they drank wine and they entered the Mishkan. Number three, they didn't have air at Har Sinai, they didn't get married, and they didn't wash their hands, and they didn't take advice, and they were anticipating the death. 7 different averas. Ask Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, what in the world is going on over here? Why are Chazal searching for an avera? The Torah says what they did wrong. They brought an Eish Zara that God commanded them not to do. So it's one thing, we don't know about something, so the Torah Shabbat Peh could look for drushes, what's going on over here, what happened. But here we don't have any doubt about what happened. The Chumash says explicitly that their sin was they offered an Eish Zara. So what are Chazal searching and looking for other Chatam? Right? It's a wonder. Why are Chazal searching high and low for different averos? That Moshe said about these holy individuals, I will be sanctified among my holy ones. Why was it not sufficient with Chazal, the pasuk that's mefurash b'Torah, v'hakrivam eizara asher lo yitziva oisam, especially according to the Baal Turim and the Chizkuni. The pasuk means God told them not to do it, and they did it anyway. So what are we looking high and low for other chatam? V'yisifu chatam elu shenirmazu b'mikra u'madua hinichu pshuto shel mikra shel chara masviku. The simple interpretation is more than sufficient to explain what they did. Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky that Chazal have one glaring problem, and that is, what do you mean they brought a fire that God did not command them? Wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen alive? Weren't the Gedolei Yisrael alive? Why didn't they ask them if they should do it? It's very nice the Chumash says what they did wrong. But how could they ever come to such an avera? The Hanira would appear the Chazal Hukshalahem Chazal were bothered. Eich yitachin be'emes shekedoshim halalu avru. How could these holy individuals have violated this aver? Kolom she'asu shaloi kedin b'makom Moshe v'Aaron. V'al karchach. You know why? You know how they were able to come to this avera despite the presence of Moshe and Aaron? Because they must not have been too impressed with the stature of Moshe and Aaron. It must be mibnei shahayru halacha b'fnei rabban. It must be they were able to come to the level where they would paskin halacha even in their presence. You know how they were able to come to do naver in a generation where you had a Moshe and an Aaron? They must not have been goyres Moshe and Aaron. They weren't too impressed with who Moshe and Aaron were. So you'll ask, what do you mean? They were paskin before Moshe and Aaron. They weren't impressed with Moshe and Aaron. How could they? Moshe Rabbeinu was the noise in Torah. How could they not be impressed with Moshe? It's still not understandable. How could they be filled with this type of feeling to Moshe Rabbeinu? You know why? It must be deep down there was another problem. They must have had a certain arrogance and haughtiness where, despite the fact that there was a Moshe Rabbeinu, they thought they were the Rosh Bahag. They thought they were the greater ones. V'kantovsu hashoresh. Here Chazal see the root. Shemimenu nistoif ha'isur hazeh. That from here it branches out this isur. What is it? V'arkarchach de'ezes rach shal gasus haruach hayakan. There must have been some element of arrogance. Ve'ech yitachin shekdoshim keilu yikashlu b'zeh. How could, now here's the problem, how could they have arrogance to Moshe and Aaron? What, they thought they were really superior to Moshe and Aaron? Yes! They were always waiting to take over the leadership. When is Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron finally going to leave so we could take over? It must be they were not sufriden with Moshe Rabbeinu. It wasn't that they were jealous, but they felt they were more worthy and they would be the next ones to take over. They had a certain arrogance that first of all allowed them to bring the foreign fire. Why didn't they ask Moshe? Because they thought they had a certain arrogance that they paskined in front of Moshe. Why did they paskin in front of Moshe? Because they thought they could lead the generation better than Moshe Rabbeinu? Why did they drink wine when they entered the Mishkan? Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, why did they drink wine? There was nothing wrong with drinking wine. Because the Isser of drinking wine was first given in Parshas Shemini. That means before they drank the wine, it wasn't Isser. So what was wrong with it then? What was wrong with it was this was a very joyous day for them because this was the day that they became the Kohanim. This was the day they were inaugurated as Kohanim. The same way we make a Sudas Bar Mitzvah on a day a child becomes obligated in mitzvahs, they were Besimcha Gedala, that they were being inaugurated as Kohanim, so they drank a little bit. But the problem is, they should have been a little bit afraid to drink a little bit of wine. Maybe they wouldn't have done the avodah properly. Right? Why were they not scared that if they imbibe some alcohol, maybe that will deter their ema, maybe that will undermine the ema they have for the Shekhinah? It must be that in general, their fear of the Shekhinah was somewhat diminished. Why? Because at Matan Torah, they had already gazed at the Shekhinah inappropriately, and they didn't have the proper Emas HaShekhinah. So in other words, it says the open is Vayechsu Asalakim. It says the pasuk in Chumash in Parshas Mishpatim. Ulefikach shasu ma'at. That's why they drank a little bit. Lo shikarim. They didn't become drunk. Ela shtuya yayin. Aval hayu lahem lefachei. They should have been afraid. L'shtos yayin biyom shem tzrichen la'avod avoda. And why were they not? v'al karchach mibnei shehigisu daitam be'emas hashchina. It must be they had a certain arrogance toward the Shechina. Ulefikach bevadai gam b'Sinai. It must be then that even at Matan Torah, when God was given the Torah, they were looking at Hashem while they were eating and drinking, and they had a certain lack of emas hashchina. Says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, and that's also why they didn't get married. They had a certain arrogance to say, this one's not worthy of me. My father's a Kohen Gadol, my uncle is the Melech, my other uncle is the Nasi. Says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, an amazing thing. There could be a person who does many chataim, but there is one underlying axle that all of the sins revolve around that nekuda hapnima. And what is that? It's usually a bad midah. The importance of correcting midos, because a bad midah can be the central point of devastation on many ways. In other words, it's not that Chazal are searching for a chet. They're searching for how the chet happened. How were they able to deny a straight-out command by God not to bring a foreign fire? What do you mean? Moshe Rabbeinu is there. Why don't you ask him if they should do it? It must be they would paskin in front of Moshe. Paskin in front of Moshe? How could they paskin in front of Moshe? It must be what? They had a certain gaiva toward Moshe Rabbeinu. They weren't happy. What? A gaiva to Moshe Rabbeinu? Yeah. It must be they were not satisfied with Moshe's leadership. Not satisfied with Moshe's leadership? Yeah. Because they felt that as soon as Moshe and Aaron go on to the next world, they'll take over. And that's why they drank wine, because they had a certain arrogance that despite drinking, they could still maintain a level head. What do you mean? Well, what about the fear of the Shechina? It must be they had a certain lack of emas hashchina, which must have displayed itself at Har Sinai. In other words, Chazal are not searching for new averos. Chazal are searching to uncover the avera that the Torah mentions. Okay.
Do they know Kol Torah Kula? I just wondered.
What?
Do they know Kol Torah Kula?
Chazal?
No, not of Avihu. Do they know Chumash?
Yeah.
First of all, look, Kam Navi Od B'Yisrael Kamosha.
Okay.
That pasuk. What do they do with that pasuk? Look, Kam B'Yisrael Navi Od Kamosha. What would they do with that pasuk?
Yeah, but a leader, they said they couldn't be better.
No, it can't be better. Look, Kam B'Yisrael, the pasuk.
A Navi.
He's a great.
It's not just their mistake. It was in truth. In truth, there was a certain aspect that Nadav Avihu had a certain greatness that nobody else was able to match.
Upon him. Yeah, but
not in terms of Nebuah, but in other ways.
Understand that. A pasuk says that about a leader.
Okay, let's move on. Let's see in number 5. Vayikra Moshe Mishav El Tzafan. So now that Nadav Avihu had passed away, Moshe Rabbeinu calls Mishael and El Tzafan, Bnei Uzziah El Doid Aaron. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu is calling the relatives, right, to clean up the mess. Right, you have these two bodies in the Mishkan. Vayomer Aleim, and he says to them, Kirvu, draw close, Seu es achechem me'ez pnei achodesh al michutz hamachane. Carry out your brothers from inside the Mishkan. So the Baal Turim points out another unique phenomenon about this was Uk's Parsha. The word kirvu has 2 trop. Right? By the way, you pronounce the second one first. Right? It's kirvu. Right? It's a garshayim first, and then a tchisha gedola. Right? Yesh ba shnei ta'amim. Melamed. So what does that teach you? Says the Baal Turim, shaloi karvu aleim lahechal.
What do you mean you pronounce the second one first?
The second note is pronounced first.
Comes first. Second note first.
Okay, melamed.
Why?
I don't know. Say why.
Why?
That's what it does.
Because that's the one that Hashem told us to pronounce first.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Now, but what do you mean it doesn't say like that? That's because the Tlisha Gedola always appears...
It's a Kriya Niksiv.
No. It's because the Tlisha Gedola, it always appears on the ultimate syllable, which means on the first syllable. Okay? You can't put a Tlisha Gedola on the second syllable. But you could... The way that's just how it's written. In other words, the Tlisha Gedola always appears on the the penultimate syllable. Tusha Ketana is on the ultimate. Now, if you're going to emphasize a different one, in the more corrected tikkunim, they'll make a second. Okay.
It's not Ma'akiv, is it?
Is it Ma'akiv?
Alright, let's move on. I have questions.
The other one is Ma'akiv.
Let's see. Malamed, Shaloi Karvu Aleim LaHeichal. We learn from here. They did not actually approach them in the Heichal. Ela heitilu bahem chanis. They stuck a spear into them. He stuck a spear into them. Shal barzel, of iron. Ugirarum, and he dragged them. And he took them outside. In other words, he didn't actually go to the body and schlepp the body out. He stood outside, stuck a sword into the body, and thereby removed the body.
Why? Because they were Levium and they weren't allowed in there? Why couldn't they just go in and take them out?
Why couldn't...
They're not allowed to go in. They're not allowed to go in.
Then what did you cut it?
They were So here's the question. How does the Baal HaTurim know that that's what they did? Maybe they went in and they schlepped them out. Who told him? No, they didn't actually go in. They stood on the outside. They stuck in a sword and they pulled. Who told him?
He knows from the truck.
How does he know from the truck?
Their Shiurim must be their Shiurim. Stuck them.
You may think
and then Kirvu.
this is my favorite.
Okay, let me talk about that. Look at number 7.
We learned it from Lo.
So the Baal HaTurim is really quoting from the Parshas Harakiah. Harakiah is one of the classic Rishonim on the Ramazim of the Torah. He said something very interesting. Again, Beis Nigunim Yeshlo, it has 2 trop. The 2 trop tell me, Shaloi Karvu Mamash Beheichal. They didn't enter actually. Shaloi Nichnesu Lifnim, Elo Hitilu Behem Chanish Shal Barzel. They stuck in a iron sword. V'girum Lechutz, and they dragged them outside. Amar Moshe, Kirvu, Beis HaKravos. You need to approach twice. Kirvu Mamash. You should, if they're on the outside, then you can mamish go over to them. Im lav, and if not, bechika kirvu. Then you need to approach them with the spear. Lekach beis tamim. That's why they're 2 trop. Now, what does that mean? I believe what that means. Moshe is telling them, kirvu. But there's no need to say kirvu twice. Instead, we could just put 2 different trop. But it's as if it's written kirvu twice. So maybe what Moshe Rabbeinu meant is, if they're outside, approach them. And if they're inside, approach them. So I believe what the Rokach is saying is, no, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying 2 types of approaching, as indicated by 2 different types of trop. One is approach nearby, and if not, then you have to approach them in a different type of way. What's the different type of way? You stick the sword in.
Well, you could ask, why is Moshe telling them ifs? Moshe goes over there, sees where they are, and tells them what to do. Why does he have to if this, if that? Moshe found out about this. He goes over and sees where are they and gives the instruction. Why do we have to talk about what ifs?
Moshe Rabbeinu apparently was not inside because he got the Dvar Hashem. He got the word, so he gave over the word.
Kodesh Kedoshim, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
in the Kodesh, by the Mizbech HaKtoros. By the Mizbech HaKtoros. But look.
You can't go into it all.
No, well, Moshe Rabbeinu is not a Kohen, he can't go into the Kodesh either, presumably. Okay, now Rabbi said, very interesting. Very interesting, there's a note, a Masoretic note, that says there are 5 words in the Tanakh that have 2 trop. Okay? One is Zeh in Parshas Bereshis. Who remembers? Zeh Yinachamenu Mimasinu, right? Noach. That's one. And there's another one here. And another one in Malachim Beis. And another one in Ezekiel. And another one in Zephaniah. Now, the Masoretic note concludes that a mnemonic to help you remember the words that have 2 trop is Ki Sechala Laser. Now, what does that mean? How do those words help you remember the 5 instances in Tanakh that have 2 trop? They don't. But it helps you remember a different thing. It helps you remember that when you're singing the trup of these words, first comes the Gershayim, right, the second time, and then comes the Tchisha Gedolah, because the trup on Kisachal Laser is Kisachal Laser. So the mnemonic is really to help you remember the way you sing the trup, but not the order of the trup. Let us just take a look at one more item over here. And that is, the Gemara Masechta Kedushin tells us that the Rishonim were called Seifrim because they used to count the letters of the Torah. The Vav of Gachon is the halfway point of letters in the Sefer Torah. By the way, in our Sefer Torah, could somebody pass me a Chumash? According to our count, instead of it appearing in Parshas Shemini,
Dorosh, right?
No,
Dorosh.
Thank you. Okay, right. The halfway letter is the Vav of Gachon. The words are Darash, Darash, which there's a halacha that the first Darash has to appear on the last, has to be the last word of the line. The second Darash has to be the first word of the next line. And the Hisgalach is the midway point in Psukim. By the way, according to our count, the midway point of Psukim is not in the Hisgalach. It's in last week's Parsha. Vayat od lo bad is the midway point in Psukim. Okay. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky again has the following question. Okay? And the words Darash, Darash, Moshe from Masorah, Matsuyin, Shekan, Chatzi HaTorah V'Tevos. In the Masorah, there's a note that this is the midway point of letters of words in the Torah, right? V'hu mi Kedushin. This is the Gemara Kedushin. Here's the problem. It's way off. The number that the Gemara gives as a midway point is really way off. Ra'isi, Shetama Rav Echad, Ein HaCheshbon Mechuvan. It's not really exact. V'chatzi ha'echad, Mispar HaTevos, Ola Liyosem, Mishloshes Alafim, V'chatzi HaBeis. It's more than 3,000 words off. When the Gemara says that the midway point in the Chumash is Darash, Darash, it's more than 3,000 words off. Now that's a lot of words. That's a lot of words. Says Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, based on a fascinating thing that I was not familiar with, a comment on the Siddur Hagra on the Tefillah Al Kei Nekavelecha. You'll take a look. The Tefillah Al Kei Nekavelecha has 71 words. However, it's only supposed to have 70 words. Just like we were redeemed after the first Golus after 70 years. So Al Kei Nekavelecha, it's a prayer that God should redeem us quickly, like 70 years. That's why it has 70 words. We say Al Kei Nekavelecha Lirois Meheira B'Seferes Uzecha. We're doubting that the Golus should end quickly. But it has 71 words and not 70. Says the Vilna Gaon, there's a makaf in between the words Al and Kain. There's a hyphen. Al Kain. Says the Gra, when you have a hyphen, it becomes one word. So says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, in the Chumash there are many words that are hyphened, and really they should be counted as one word. He says like this. He says, according to that which the Gra brings down, the Al Kei Nekavelecha, b'Shem Hazayar, the Chahatevo Shehein Mechubar Ma'idei Makaf, that all, this is not just the Gra is quoting the Zayar, that all words that are combined with a hyphen, Nachshavin L'Teva Achas, are counted as one word. In Keinicha Shaper, it comes out that it's very good. The Efshem Nisbar V'Chagav Neyala HaMisbar Mechuban. If you count the hyphen words as one word, it will come out exact. V'Afilu Lo Yeh Mechuban. And even if it doesn't come out exact, we are not bekiyim to know. We no longer know which words should have hyphens and should not. Nami loy kasha devaru bekiyim b'makafim v'zen nachon. And we'll just end, very interesting, from the Dega Machanei Ephraim, a Chasida Shavart. Why the halfway point in the Torah is Darash, Darash, right? Darash, Darash. Why were those words selected to be the halfway point in the Torah? Because we're familiar that we have a Torah Shabachsav, and we have the Torah Shabapeh, which is Doiresh the Torah. Lest anyone think the Torah Shabachsav is an entity in and of itself, and has stability and standing as a separate entity, the Torah says, Darash, Darash. This is the midway point. In other words, until you get to Drasha, you only have half an entity. You don't have a complete entity. It's not that you have a Torah Shabachsav as a one entity, and a Torah Shabapeh, the drashas are separate. Without the drashas of the Gemara, The Torah Shebechsav has no independent standing.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.